You're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show.
The view from our side of the cockpit door.
WAPG, it's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 664.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door, with your host, Captain Jeff, broadcasting live from APG headquarters in Roswell, Georgia. Today's show is recorded on the week of May 29, 2025.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the Airline Pilot Guy. Picture light and he's flying by with the Airline Pilot Guy.
In today's episode, another ATC outage, this time affecting Denver. And at LaGuardia, a flight starts to take off with another plane on the runway.
Cricket 4736, stop.
Also ahead, more news, your feedback, and today's plane tale. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seat backs in the upright and locked positions, electronic devices powered on. I'm Radio Roger, and Flight 664 is ready for pushback.
Thank you, Radio Roger. He's an award-winning TV and radio reporter, currently at the number one all-news station in the nation, 1010 Wins on 92.3 FM in
New York City.
Welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast covering the latest in aviation news and answering your great feedback. And joining us today from her lakeside studio in South, doctor, skydiver, marathon runner, IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument-rated backstabbing jumper-dumper. It's Dr. Steph.
Hey, Captain Jeff. It's good to see you guys. I'm really glad to be here, at least for a short while this week. So, looking forward to some good conversation here.
Yeah, we're looking forward to getting all caught up with you as well. All right. And also joining us from his studio,
In Hartford, Hereford, and Hampshire.
retired professional dog photographer, former RAF fighter pilot, retired Airbus A330, A340 captain for Virgin Atlantic Airways. It's Captain Nick.
Hi there, Jeff. Hello, everybody. We've got a big team in tonight. It's great. APG 664. Now, Whiskey 664 was the registration of a Hawker Hunter, like what I flew. And there's also a Twin Otter with the manufacturer's serial number of 664, like what Steph flies. Good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Making those connections.
Yeah, but wasn't there something bad like that happened?
Oh, there were
like
plenty of crashes.
Okay. Because that's what we're used to.
664 has not been a good number for most airlines.
Okay. Well,
The fact that Nick flew it was bad news. So
thanks for keeping it on the light side then, Captain Nick.
Doing my
Appreciate that.
best.
All right. And also joining us from the north woods of the Atlanta suburbs, race car driver, self-taught chef, and commercial multi-engine instrument-rated pilot with an interest in anything with enough horsepower to kill him. It's A.J. Schramm, or he likes to call himself Alpha Juliet to kind of stay below the radar.
Hey, Jeff. Good to be back. Make sure you mark me down for 2 in a row. That's two in a row.
That's 2 in a row! Mark him down! Okay, we got it.
Glad to be
Staff's
back.
on
Glad
it.
to see you guys.
Great to have you again, sir. And also joining us from her studio in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. She's a retired financier, an aviation enthusiast, spreadsheet master, and our producer, Liz Piper.
hi, everybody. Great to see y'all, all y'all.
It's great to see y'all too. All right.
Okay, have a good show, you guys.
Thank you. Let's do some news.
Stand by for news.
All right, we're going to start with this. Oh, darn it. Another open door on a GA aircraft resulting in a fatal crash. This is from, Let's see, KKTV, a local news affiliate in Broomfield, Colorado. A plane crashed while leaving the Rocky Mountain Metropolitan Airport in Broomfield on Saturday. There were no survivors, according to the North Metro Fire Rescue District. The FAA said 2 people were on board, and their preliminary report reads as follows. A Beechcraft 95, which is a Baron, I believe, crashed short of the runway as the pilot was attempting to land at Rocky Mountain Metro Airport in Broomfield, Colorado, around 10:05 local time on Saturday, May 17th. So let's see, that was about, this last weekend. Yeah. Not long ago. 2 people were on board. The FAA and National Transportation Safety Board will investigate. The NTSB is the lead investigative agency and will provide any updates. And the airport representatives say that the Beechcraft twin-engine airplane took off just after 10. The pilot called the air traffic control tower, reporting an issue with its door being open. While trying to return to the airport, representatives say the plane crashed near the intersection of Brainerd and Midway off the Flatiron Crossing exit. You guys are familiar with that, right?
Yeah.
And resulting in a fire that was extinguished by the North Metro Fire Department. The Boulder Police Department has secured the scene. The Federal Aviation Administration. Okay, we already talked about that. The public is advised to avoid the area as authorities continue their investigation. Okay, and that's several days ago. I'm sure it's okay now to go to that area. We've also included a link to another great Juan Brown Blancalirio YouTube channel video. He covered this just a couple of days ago, and it goes into a lot of detail regarding the airplane and also, the situations where you have a door open, etc. So we'll include that in our show notes. Anything that any of our, especially our GA folks, want to talk about here as far as, any of your own perspectives regarding open door? Now, I know, Steph, you're going to say, well, I always fly with my door open. So, what's the big deal?
What's the big deal?
Right. But I'll put an asterisk with that, or caveat, just to note that the aircraft that I fly are meant to do so. I know we've talked about certain aircraft types, especially smaller GA ones, where especially the baggage compartment door, I think it was in the Mooney, can adversely affect the flying properties of the aircraft. So I'm not sure specifically with this make and model if something like that is more of a concern. I think AJ actually has watched the video here, but it sounds like this was just more of a case of the door was open and unfortunately they were distracted, and we always talk about aviate, navigate, communicate. They stopped doing that first one, the aviate part. So
you should never do that. That's not good.
It's kind of the one that matters.
Yeah,
it is.
That's why it's the first on the list.
Oh, and it's all. I just thought it was kind of alphabetically listed,
catchy.
But yeah. Is this, AJ, since you probably know a little bit more than the rest of us regarding this, was this one of the types of airplanes that have that side door, like you have the aft?
This door, it does have a back door on it, but this was the cockpit door is generally the one that's an issue on these. And you do lose a little bit of performance on the Baron, but it's not that dramatic. We're talking less than 100 feet per minute, give or take 100 feet per minute in climb.
Yeah.
So nothing that would cause it to fall out of the sky. I think this was purely down to just like Steph said, not paying attention, trying to fix the door problem and not fixing the flying the airplane problem. Most of my background, a lot of my background is in Cessnas, and we have a joke in Cessnas that when one door closes, another one opens. So we're used to it.
That's very true. Especially the little side window. It's open all the time. Like, if you have 172 or 182, any little movement, change in air pressure, airflow, and it's like that window just will pop open on you.
If you get all the windows shut and all the doors shut on a Cessna, it gets really eerily quiet. It's very strange. It's not a good feeling.
So that wasn't a philosophical kind of statement regarding when one door closes, another
literal.
open. Okay, it's actually literal. Okay, got it. All right. So I'm sure we'll learn more after the NTSB is finished with their investigation. And again, it's sad. Come on, people. AB, navigate, communicate. ANC, Anchorage. No, that's not a good way to remember that. Just remember, fly the airplane, and then everything else is secondary.
Yes.
Right?
Continue flying the airplane at all times, please.
Even into if you're going to be doing a crash landing, just continue to fly the airplane, even in the crash.
One of my favorite quotes is from Bob Hoover. It says, when faced with a forced landing, fly the thing as far into the crash as possible.
Exactly. That's good
Think
advice.
of the guy on the golf course from a couple weeks ago. That was a good example.
Yeah,
of continuing to
Tyler.
fly the airplane until the last possible moment.
We're on a first name basis with Tyler.
Yeah, we know Tyler. He's a good friend of the show now.
I saw that.
Okay. This is, we have a couple of articles, one from the Business Insider and also another one from Paddle Your Own Canoe. Okay.
Yes.
Liz always has this
Surprising.
contract. That's a contractual thing.
Got my payment. Ding,
it's her little spending money, that she uses during the week.
I need something.
Yeah, well, we're not going to go into that. Wow, that sounded very snarky. But very true too. So this is from Sam Dawson. I'm stunned that after the German wings crash, Europe does not have a two-man rule. We've had it in the U.S. at least as long as I've been an airline pilot. Again, that's Sam Dawson. So he sent us this link to the Business Insider. A Lufthansa flight went 10 minutes without a pilot after the first officer fell ill while alone in the cockpit, according to investigators. The Airbus A321 was flying from Frankfurt, Germany to Seville, Spain in February of last year. Okay, so that was... Do they mean 2024? Oh, okay. Full details of the incident came to light on Thursday of 2025, May, when Spanish investigators published their final report. More than 200 people were on board the flight, which appeared to be running smoothly before it crossed the Spanish border. That's the problem. Okay.
Spain, definitely Spain.
Yeah, I guess. Let's see. Let's go to this next. I think you're right, Liz. This next link, this news item from the Paddle Your Own Canoe website, it has a little bit more information regarding this. Let's see. Investigators have now made an urgent recommendation imploring airlines to have at least two people in the cockpit. This occurred, by the way, was flight 1140, Lufthansa flight 1140 on the 17th of February of 2024. Let's see. They should always have two people in the cockpit at any one time after it was revealed that the first officer suffered a seizure and started to push buttons and make inputs on the controls uncontrollably. Data extracted from the airplane's black boxes show that no one was in control of the Airbus A321 for around 10 minutes as the captain desperately tried to regain access to the cockpit, and air traffic controllers became increasingly concerned. Let's see. The incident occurred about 10:30 in the morning. Flight 1140 was flying from Frankfurt to Seville. As the plane was over mainland Spain, the captain decided to leave the cockpit for a short toilet break, leaving the first officer alone on the flight deck. The captain told investigators that the co-pilot seemed fine when he left the cockpit, but just 30 seconds later, the 38-year-old first officer suffered a sudden and severe seizure caused by a previously undiagnosed heart condition that had not been picked up in mandatory aviation medical examinations. What happened next isn't entirely clear, as the FO only remembers the captain leaving the cockpit and then being tended to by cabin crew and an off-duty doctor in the forward galley of the plane. The black boxes, however, reveal that the first officer made a number of inputs on the controls, causing the master caution alarm to sound in the flight deck. After 7 minutes leaving the cockpit, the captain attempted to gain re-entry by pressing the standard entry code on a keypad next to the cockpit door. And I think this entry code isn't the emergency one that I was thinking that they were talking about here. It's something that probably alerts whoever's in the cockpit that somebody is trying to gain access. Let's see. The entry code does not automatically open the door, but only signals to I should just read it. Whoever's on the flight deck that someone's trying to gain entry. The request to open the reinforced bulletproof cockpit door went unanswered, but at first the captain thought he had accidentally entered the wrong code. The captain tried a second and then a third time without any success. A member of the cabin crew called the flight deck via an interphone, but this call went unanswered. Desperate to regain entry, the captain then entered an emergency code into the keypad. Again, this code doesn't automatically unlock the door immediately, but signals to anyone on the flight deck that the emergency code has been entered. That person can then unlock the door or deny entry. If after a set number of seconds, the person in the cockpit hasn't unlocked the door or denied entry, the door automatically unlocks for a couple of seconds. Before the timer ran out, however, the first officer manually opened the cockpit door. Okay, so he came to his senses. By this point, he was pale, sweating, moving strangely. So cabin crew rushed to get him out of the flight deck and started to provide first aid. The captain quickly resumed control of the plane and requested an emergency medical diversion to Madrid Barajas Airport, where the first officer was rushed to a local hospital but discharged a few hours later. So again, I think that we have another situation where they took the FO out of the cockpit. I'm guessing that the captain is by himself up there in the cockpit, but obviously in good hands.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Let's leave the flight. Okay,
That's
so
about the nub of it all.
yeah, Lufthansa initially followed the safety. Okay, the nub of it all. Is that what I should read the highlighted thing? I think I highlighted that. Let's see. Oh, and that they're talking about here in the past in March 2025. No, it wasn't 2025.
No, it was back in 20.
A few years ago.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah, I think you're right. 2016 or
Nearly
something
a decade
like that.
ago.
Yeah. In the aftermath of the horrifying crash of Eurowings flight 9525.
German wings, wasn't it? German wings?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
German
Yeah,
wings.
German wing. Man. Okay, Matus.
Well, they've got a lot wrong in this particular section, actually.
Yeah. Let me start over in this paragraph. In the aftermath of the horrifying crash of Germanwings Flight 9525 in March of 2015, which killed all 150 people on board, European air safety regulators had called on airlines to always have 2 people in the cockpit at any one time. In that incident, the first officer waited for the captain to leave the flight deck to use the toilet and then took control of the plane in a horrendous case of murder-suicide, crashing the plane in the French Alps. Lufthansa initially followed the safety recommendations, but several years later decided to relax its rules. Many other airlines across Europe had been vehemently opposed to the safety recommendation and never brought in the 2 on the flight deck rule. Okay, so again, it says the Comisión de Investigación de Accidentes.
Nailed it.
Yeah, thank you. Where's my bell? There we go. Is now urging airlines to reconsider the risk assessments.
Oh, this is an interesting one, isn't it? Because we did discuss it at length when our company, initially after the Germanwings crash, we had a policy of having a cabin crew member come onto the flight deck. And it wasn't just the Germanwings thing. It was considered a security aid as well, to monitor the pilot that was left on the flight deck. And that didn't last very long. It was never mandated in the UK, as in a number of European countries, and quite quickly it was dropped again. The main consideration wasn't that the cabin crew were complaining dreadfully because they were one person short at regular intervals. It was normally because the cockpit door had to be opened for much longer to get, or often twice. Whoever was leaving to go to the toilet would open it, and then a cabin crew member would open it to come on to, that changeover wasn't smooth. And when it came to having some person on the flight deck who might have only been in the company a short time, and the security checkups that are done on all employees, even those that fly, are not like something that's done in the military. They're not like, MI5 gets and speaks to everyone and they do extensive checks. They're pretty superficial. So the idea was, and I'll tell you how they're superficial, because we have had investigative journalists posing or joining companies, and no one has checked up on them sufficient to discover that they're a journalist and not actually someone who's going to keep the job. They're just there to find out some dirty details about what happens in an airline. So the idea was that you're bringing someone to the flight deck that's not necessarily going to help. For a start, they may not even know how to open the cockpit door. They certainly aren't cleared to touch anything on any of the controls on the flight deck. So, what aid will they be? There was an awful lot of pushback against it. And the main thing occurred that if someone's going to become incapacitated, it's a pretty rare occurrence. They don't happen very often. For that rare occurrence to occur at the very moment that someone's left to go to the toilet is becoming infinitesimally small. Now, obviously, someone is eventually going to win the lottery. And that's exactly what happened on this aircraft. Someone gets the Euro millions, but the chances of that person getting it twice are so remote as to be not worth considering. So that was, generally speaking, the opinion in the UK and in Europe, a lot of Europe. Now, I know that in the States, the FAA lays down a rule, and all the airlines, therefore, follow it. But that was definitely not the case in Europe.
Yeah, things are done a little bit differently over here on this side of the pond. It's not a suggestion or a guidance. It's a rule. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Okay. Camacho, come on in. You're the next contestant on the APG Price is Right.
While he's coming in, can I just mention
Too late,
the fact
already here.
that... Oh, okay. Too late. I was already speaking. Can I just mention the fact that the facts of this story that you read out, Jeff, are incorrect. It is possible
What?
to gain entry.
Hang on.
What?
You mean somebody, a journalist writing the story got something wrong?
Yeah.
What?
Exactly.
No.
It is possible if you enter the emergency code into the door will open. Now, there is a time delay that will allow I shouldn't really perhaps go into too much detail. There is a time delay, and it can be overridden, but it does open the door. So they say it doesn't, but so the captain could have got, if he'd entered the emergency code, he should have got access to the flight deck without any input from the sick first officer. So it's not like he was going to get locked out and unable to get in. That was not the case.
Yeah,
correct. They were actually saying that in the article. It's just that before that time delay ran out, that happened to coincide with when the first officer was sufficiently coherent again to be able to open the door.
And the door doesn't automatically open either. It unlocks.
It's unlocked
for a short period of time that you can open.
Yeah, you have to be.
It doesn't automatically. It never automatically opens. Yeah. So I guess the semantics.
Does remind anybody else of the next Final Destination movie? Just like Nick was saying, the odds of the timing of that just blows my mind.
Yeah,
indeed.
All right. Hey, again, welcome, Nick Camacho. I'm not going to do your full little intro thing. Takes up time. We don't have a lot of time to play with here today on part one, but it's good to see you. And we covered the latest door open fatal before this story, and it's a Beechcraft Baron in Colorado that crashed, killing 2. Anything in particular you want to say about that? Yeah.
Not particularly.
Okay.
It
All right,
gets
well,
a
then
little. So yes, I guess there is one thing that I'll mention. So I have very little time. I've got maybe like 5 hours in a Baron, so I'm not as familiar with that airplane. It looks very similar to a Bonanza with 2 engines. But one thing that is a little different about that airplane is it seems like the door open characteristics of it are not as well understood as Bonanzas. It is like widely understood and accepted that a door opening on a Bonanza is a complete non-event. It'll go into trail. We've talked about it probably 3 times on the show already. It'll go into trail like 3 to 6 inches open, and it'll just kind of sit there, and it'll be loud, but the airplane will fly fine. I've talked to people who have had doors open on a Baron, and they act the exact same way. And then I've also talked to people who have said that they've had doors pop open and the airplane shakes and buffets quite a bit more, and it's significantly more
startling.
Like distracting, maybe. Yeah.
Exactly. And I don't know. We get into like the techno babble discussions because, some Barons have vortex generators and some don't. And there's a lot of different, the discussions I've had and the stuff that I've read. There's a lot of different theories about why they would be different and why it's not as consistent across Barons like it is across Bonanzas. But yeah, that is the only thing that I would say is seems like it could still be a non-factor. I don't think it's like airplane out of control type of behavior, but I think it is definitely more of a startling input than a Bonanza. It could be more of a startling input than a Bonanza door opening.
Okay.
And it kind of stinks to talk about them once a month, which it feels like
it does. Right? Like it seems like every time I get an update on my YouTube channels that I'm subscribed to, especially the aviation channels, there's something about an open door and a crash,
Yeah.
And unfortunately, usually it leads to people dying, and that's no good. Yeah. All right. Thank you for that, Nick.
One last news item.
Okay. So then that means we should go to this. Okay. And that, if you'll put my shared thing there, and then let's start off with this piece of video.
Responded to a car driving on an O'Hare tarmac over the weekend. Imagine this. CPD now says the vehicle belonged to a very confused food delivery driver who accidentally entered an area posted as off limits to non-airport personnel. Where was he trying to get?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know. So the driver was not cited. The incident happened on Saturday.
And my God, how do you turn around?
Right?
Once you're in, you're in.
And the driver wasn't cited. That means he was blind. Oh my gosh, what was he doing driving a car?
So extra confused.
Oh man, no wonder he got drove onto the airport.
Explains so much.
But the thing that really is disturbing about this whole case is that the food that he was trying to deliver was not a Chicago deep dish pizza. It was a New York style, and that's what has everybody in Chicago very upset.
No, that's why he got pulled over.
That's why he would have gotten cited.
He's going to prison.
Okay, so they kind of discovered here a Chicago O'Hare International Airport, or no, not the Chicago O'Hare International Airport had a bit of a security scare. The DoorDash driver was en route to his destination, although they never really say exactly what his destination was.
Was his destination like the middle of the airfield? It was
maybe
in there, and he's like, I don't know, I'm just trying to get to.
Perhaps that's why he ended up there. Although, Liz, are you showing the sign? Can you show that close up of the sign there? I think that he's driving along and he's going, I only have a couple more minutes here to get this food to my customer. On this sign, it says "Do not enter." It doesn't say anything about no DoorDash or food deliveries. It said
no ride app, no passenger pickup or passenger drop off.
Yeah. So he didn't meet any of those. So he figured, hey, I'm good to go. So I'm going to just get through the security. Yeah, not good. Not good at all. Yeah.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
There are gates, are there not? How did he get through the gate?
I'm guessing someone else went through the gate just ahead of him and he just drove on through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
He gate surfed.
Yeah, so that happened in San Luis Obispo like probably 12 years ago, back when I still lived out there. And I don't remember if it was, I don't remember what sort of car it was, but I think they followed like a FedEx truck in, and it resulted in more rigorous security training for
and some firings, maybe.
Everybody involved.
Go back to training.
Yeah.
That looks like that almost that picture that you were showing with the sign that said no ride app, no passenger pickup. I want to say that's the lower level, where pickup actually is, but it's right by where one of the control towers is between Terminal 1 and 2 or Terminal 2 and 3, and there's kind of a parking area there and a gate, and vehicles do go in and out of there. I don't know why this guy would have turned in there, but it's not so far away from where you might be driving that it would be difficult to get to, if that's where it really is.
He's probably following his sat nav.
That's exactly what I think was going on.
Yeah, I bet you're right. Like just mindlessly following it. Okay. It doesn't look like that's right, but I'm going to do it anyway. According to the outlet, the news outlet here, a source noted that the driver drove miles along the interior and restricted roads at the airport and possibly even crossed runways before someone in the air traffic control tower saw him.
Oh, boy.
Yikes.
Well, have you seen how many vehicles are just driving around?
Yeah, they're all over the place there.
All over the place.
Yeah. Hey, I think maybe the most important part of this news article is that they got a quote from our friend Robert Mark, Airplane Geeks podcast fame. And also, they don't even mention here anything about a podcast because, it's just a podcast. But they don't also mention the fact that he was a former editor at Flying Magazine. I'm thinking that's kind of a big deal, right? I mean, wouldn't you mention that when you're citing somebody here? Anyway, it says business jet pilot, former air traffic controller Robert Mark told CBS that incidents like this are a major safety concern for the airport, but they don't happen often. And he said, luckily not that often, but I've seen it at other airports, and it's frightening when you're up and then you go, who the heck is that? Anyway, nice couple of quotes here from Rob Mark. So just wanted to mention that, put a plug in for him. All right.
Okay, let's get to know us.
Okay. Why don't we do that? And all I have to do is just find the right button. There it is.
We passed the half-hour mark about 3 minutes ago.
Okay. Well, this is the time of the show where we get a little caught up on some of the people that are on the panel for this part one. And of course, we're going to go directly to Dr. Steph because she has some fun things to tell us about. You've been doing some traveling.
Did a little bit of traveling. So a very last minute trip. I haven't done a last minute, very time compressed Europe weekend getaway in a while. So it seemed overdue. But the way this came to be, I was doing a half marathon race with one of my best friends. We've known each other since we were in second grade, so 7 years old. So I don't know, do the math. My birthday's coming up on Saturday. It's a few years that we've been friends. But we were both, we both do half marathons, and have done some triathlons as well. And we were talking about our shared love and fanaticism for this triathlete, Lucy Charles Barclay.
Is that her, Steph?
This is Lucy Charles Barclay that you're seeing on the pictures right now. And she does all these great YouTube videos, just kind of shares some of her training and her, things going on in her life. Just fun to watch. Seems like a really genuine person. Also excellent triathlete, has won, the Ironman World Championships, both in Kona at the full distance and then at the half distance in the past.
Her shoulder muscles are amazing. I mean, are those?
Yeah.
Those are pads, are they?
No.
Oh my
Those
gosh.
are not shoulder pads.
Like those are very impressive shoulder muscles on her.
Yes.
Wow.
But we were kind of saying, man, it'd be awesome to go and see the World Championship race in Kona sometime. It's cool to watch her race in person. So anyway, we had this conversation, went home, and then she announced that she was going to be competing in this Ironman race in Lanzarote, which is one of the Canary Islands in Spain. That's actually kind of easier to get to than Hawaii from our part of the United States. So I said, it was like 2 weeks later that this race was happening. So I messaged my friend and I said, what's the chance that you could be free this Thursday to Sunday and that you actually have a passport? Because she doesn't travel very much. And she texted me back in the morning. She's like, I could make it happen. I was like, okay, great, game on. That's like, kind of stuff I live for. So put together these last minute travel plans. She lives in the Chicago area. Obviously, I'm here in Charlotte. Just the way the timing worked out, we were both going to have to work like right up until the last second of when we needed to leave to go to see this race happen. So I left from Charlotte. She left from Chicago. The plan was to meet in Madrid and then take our connecting flight to Lanzarote. I got to Madrid like an hour early, had all this time to wander around. She got there an hour late, so we missed our connecting flight because I wasn't going to leave her alone in Madrid at the airport for several hours. But really nice gate agent there. Talked to her. I was like, I'm not going to travel without her. I'll just call the airline, figure it out. Got us booked on a later flight. And I was like, well, all right, plan B. Now we've got a few hours in Madrid to wander around, which neither of us had really ever done before. So those were the other pictures that I think Liz was showing. I forget the name of the one that looks like Disneyland, Jeff said.
Oh, that one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not Disneyland.
So it's like,
okay.
I want to say that's the former Royal Palace or part of Plaza Mayor. I can't remember exactly, but we were both kind of tired and jet lagged at that point, just from having traveled all night long and carrying all of our stuff, which wasn't a ton, but a backpack becomes very heavy after, several hours of lugging it around, especially when you've jammed absolutely everything into it for a weekend. But it was a beautiful day. It was like lower 70s, full sunshine, lots of people out. So we just wandered around, went to a bunch of different parks, had some amazing seafood. We went to a tapas place for lunch, and it was some of the best fresh scallops and grilled grilled octopus, that I've ever had. It was really good. And then we basically just got back on the train, went back to the airport. I had booked us on a completely different airline, and made our way over to Lanzarote, which is so interesting story about this guy. I'll get back to that in a second. But obviously one of the Canary Islands, very like volcanic in appearance. So not a lot of flora and fauna, very kind of stark. If you're looking at the picture there, that's the picture of the main beach where we were in the town that we were staying in. But not a lot off the beaten path once you're out of kind of these resort towns. So this Ironman race, Liz, if you go back to the picture, so my friend Lisa and I, and then there's an older gentleman there, and his name is Kenneth Gask. And so this Ironman race, obviously a full Ironman, so it's a 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, marathon run. He was responsible for getting that race set up on this island back in 1992. So it's been ongoing for quite a long time. I think they've actually done 28 editions of it over those years. And this guy is a Danish gentleman. He was living on the island back in the 80s and working at this big fitness club there called Club La Santa, which is kind of this destination site where all these professional athletes come and they can kind of camp there and train and, do their heat training and just kind of be away from distractions. So he was working, I think, as the fitness director or sporting director, and some guy came to stay there and he was wearing a shirt that said Ironman Hawaii. And he goes, well, how do I get a shirt that says Ironman Hawaii? That's pretty cool. And the guy goes, we have to go do this race and earn it. So he actually went and ended up competing in the Ironman race in Hawaii.
Just to get the t-shirt? Wow.
Just to get the t-shirt? No, I mean, he was obviously a pretty high-level athletic guy himself back in the 80s and 90s. And, the story goes that when he got there, he was looking around. He's like, well, Hawaii doesn't seem that dissimilar from this island. Why couldn't we have an Ironman race here? And I guess it took us several years of him petitioning the Ironman organization to actually get it set up. But it's been the longest running Ironman race in Europe since then. So pretty interesting. But the first day that we were there, Liz, if you go back to the picture, I don't know if I included the picture, but there's a statue of this gentleman they had put up in town.
In there.
Yeah. So we saw the statue and we were reading the thing. We're like, oh, that's really cool. And we just assumed that kind of because there was a statue of him and they had just put it up this year and had a plaque and a tribute to him, that maybe he was no longer around. And then the next morning he was wandering around at the race start. Oh, that's the guy. And
Jeff,
then later on,
Danish. It's probably related to you.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. And then later on in the day, he was standing in front of his statue, like greeting people and taking pictures and stuff. He was very nice. He just came over and started talking to us out of just curiosity, see where we were from and who we were cheering for and, what our backgrounds were.
What would be really fun is if that statue was like one of those people that do like act like they're statues and then just start moving around. And
start moving around.
Okay, I'm sorry. Please continue.
This guy, I don't know. He's kind of all around the island. I guess I didn't really look into this as much as I looked into the Danish guy who started the Ironman. But
look at that's a tail.
It's a tail. It's definitely a tail. So I don't know. It cracks me up when you see it because I don't know. You can. If you're watching the video, you can probably tell.
And how did she do in the race, Steffi?
Yeah, so Lucy won the women's race by a wide margin, like 10, 15 minutes, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, she was out there by herself, kind of wire to wire, leading the whole race. So that was expected. The men's race was actually pretty close. I think the first 3 guys were within, the first 2 were within a minute or 2 of each other. They were definitely very close on the majority of the bike and the run. So that was exciting to watch as well. And, it was great. We, if you go back to that picture of Lucy, Liz, that's kind of the main road through town that parallels the beach. There's all these shops and restaurants and little boutique things. When we got there, everyone's like, oh, it's really busy this weekend because the race is in town. It really was not very busy at all. I'm not sure what normal busy is for them, but it didn't strike me as being too crazy.
Didn't look like a lot of crowds there.
No, it wasn't a ton of crowds, but we were able to basically spend the better part of the day sitting at one of the cafe bar type places on the street there. They had, everything set up on the sidewalk, and we just sat and we watched the finish of the bike course was right in front of us, and then the run course was a series of out and backs, so we got to see all the athletes go by 6 or 7 times, which was really neat. And we got very sunburned, even though we used sunscreen.
Like Jeff.
Yeah, so, I don't want to talk about it.
And then is this you taking off to come home?
That's taking off to go home.
That's a volcano.
All of these islands are volcanoes, or former volcanoes. This one, Google Maps tells me, is Isla de Alegranza, maybe. I don't know that anyone lives on this one, but it was just very interesting and striking appearance.
That's beautiful. It's the sun on it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool stuff.
Very nice.
So left Thursday evening, came back Sunday. So quick trip, but it was good.
And now you're way behind in work and everything else, right?
No, I just have crammed things into the next 3 weekends in a row too. So
she's made time for us, which is great.
Yeah, thank you for making time for us, Steph. Always good to see you.
What's our Camacho guy been up to?
Camacho, before he has to run and get back to work. What have you been up to, sir?
I've just been working a ton. So I spent the majority of the last, month almost, bouncing around between Kansas and the West Coast. So I've spent time in California at my office, as well as a couple other places on the West Coast, going back and forth between the office and home and doing a bunch of traveling. So got that behind me for now, but I think I've got another big surge of it coming up here in a month or so. So hopefully I'll have an opportunity to get on a couple of shows here in the next few weeks.
Well, I have to say, speaking of California, because I know you do a lot of work on the West Coast, looking at our live audience, our live chat, we have a bunch of people from California with us here today. We've got Tim Van Ram, and we have Jim Mercado, our brand ambassador, that wonderful Fly Acme Airlines logo. Jim. Yeah, there you go. Steph is showing on her. Mike Cochran sent the crew at the time these beautiful Yeti mugs with our logo, and there Liz is showing it now. So that was Jim's nice work, and so we thank him for that. And anybody? Oh, Sam Bolog from LA is with us as well. So we got Southern and Northern California covered in the live chat room. Yeah.
Tim Van Ram doesn't look happy with you.
Oh, he doesn't? Oh, what did I do? We have already kind of covered that. I think we've kind of smoothed his feathers a little bit. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not.
Have you had any tornadoes in Kansas, Camacho?
Yeah. Did you have any Kansas tornadoes in the last week?
No, we didn't. We've actually gotten significant severe weather warnings on, what is today, Wednesday?
Yeah.
So I guess it would have been Sunday afternoon and evening, and then Monday afternoon and evening. We were in the enhanced weather pocket. And neither day it really, nothing really came about in our specific area. There was bad weather throughout Kansas, but we missed it completely on Sunday. I don't think we even got any rain or really anything from it on Sunday. On Monday, we did get a bunch of wind. So there were limbs and leaves everywhere in our neighborhood. Unfortunately, our little sailing club, which is in a lake about a half hour northeast of where I live, a couple of guys there had damage to their boats. But that seems like about the extent of it. No significant tornadoes or structurally damaging effects here, fortunately, because they were talking about some pretty bad weather.
Okay. Well, that's good to hear. Good to hear.
Yep.
Good to see you.
Let's see. AJ, are you going to be with us on part 2? Or are you going to be, you're not sure yet?
Looks like probably not.
Okay. Then let's hear what's new with you besides the facial hair or lack thereof.
That's the big story is just terrorizing my children with a face they've never seen before in their entire lives. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long did it take to convince the police after your kids and wife called them for a stranger in their home?
Multi-day process. There were a lot of background checks and things happened. It was it was a thing.
All right. Anything else you want to tell us about?
Pretty much it. Hopefully won't be on the show Saturday because hopefully I'll be flying a turboprop up to Maine, but we'll see. So
nice. That fancy Georgia Tech bird.
Fun.
Nice.
Yep. The yellow jacket.
Yeah. That's a neat looking airplane. All right. Very good. And then we'll save Captain Nick's getting to know us segment
he's
for
got some great stuff. Let's
Saturday,
tease that, baby.
including mine, which will be just so amazing. You won't be able to believe all the things I've been doing.
That's very true.
Anyway, all right, very good. So that'll do it for our getting to know us segment. And that leaves us with a little bit of time, I guess maybe about 10, 15 minutes at most.
So, I was thinking that Montana Tony said he was listening to us in his car today. So he's got 2 feedback items. Why don't we do those 2? 5 and 6. 5 and 6.
Is that Anthony Liotta? Hello from Montana.
Correct.
Tune in for my drive from Kalispell back to Missoula. Ooh, nice. That's beautiful
correct.
country out there in Montana. Okay. So tell me again which number is that?
5 and 6.
Okay.
5 and 6.
All right. Very good. So we're going to, here, I probably should do this, although it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter because I'll just put it in post.
Captain, incoming message.
We're going to start off with this from Montana Tony. Boeing 737 bodies go for a swim. He says, hello from Montana. Thought I would share this sad picture with you. And I am a former captain, he puts in quotes, locomotive engineer, now a company manager of safety and training for a major U.S. railroad. I travel the division which spans 3 states. So your podcasts keep me company on my long drives. Back in 2014, we had an unfortunate derailment while transporting 737 bodies from Kansas to Washington State. I've linked the story in this email for you, and that'll be in the show notes for everybody. Thank you for what you do. I enjoy the show immensely. If any of you enjoy 1940s music and radio shows, visit my online radio station, WLVN1940sradio.com. Again, we'll have that link in the show notes. And I did check it out, by the way, and that's very cool. I loved listening to some of that 1940s radio stuff. Anyway, he signs off by saying, hope you all have a wonderful weekend, Montana Tony. And then I'm sure you're showing now the pictures of that sad picture. I guess those are manufactured by Spirit in Tulsa, I believe. And then they ship those things to via rail to Seattle. And looks like they had a little bit of an issue there.
Had a little swim. Back
in 2014. Yeah, that is sad. Wonder how much money that is right there, just laying around destroyed.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot.
I wonder how many of those are airplanes now.
Oh, a lot.
Hopefully none of them.
Yeah, a little Bondo. That'll take care of it.
Yeah.
It'll buff out.
I think most of those are from Wichita because I think those are built by
Wichita.
Spirit in Wichita.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I sometimes confuse. Sorry.
Were you insulting Camacho?
Yeah, I think I didn't intentionally insult Camacho, but I did because when I was saying it, I'm thinking, is it Tulsa or Wichita? I always, for some reason, I get those two cities messed up or mixed up.
Yeah, they sound so similar.
Well, and I know, and they're not even in the same state.
Yeah, they're not even in the same state.
You're just making it worse for me and harder for me to do all the post editing, and so I don't sound so completely clueless. But now you've made it so I have to keep all of this in there.
I think that was a good one to keep. That was a fun
I think
one.
I will.
That was an innocent one. It's okay.
Okay.
I remember hearing stories of them showing up with, just bullet holes and various maladies from their multi-day train ride from Wichita to Washington.
Really?
Target practice.
Target practice.
Only in America.
Yeehaw.
Wait a minute.
So that'll be all the Airbus pilots. Who on
Sound
the
of
way
freedom.
over.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I've never experienced that firsthand, but I've heard a couple of different people mention that.
All right, let's continue. Again, from Montana Tony. I was listening to episode 662. Nick was explaining a video he was watching of a wire snap where the deck crew jumped over the wire. I was actually on board the USS George Washington when that happened, 9/11/2003. So exactly 2 years after 9/11/2001. We were doing workups and carrier calls off the coast of Virginia, thankfully not in the middle of the ocean. September 2001, I was an 18-year-old kid working at the Oakland airport, fueling airplanes at an FBO, looking to go to flight school to be an airline pilot. 9/11 changed those plans. After the towers fell, I went right to the recruiters and enlisted in the Navy. Awesome. I was an aviation ordnance tech with the flight deck department and was in the hangar bay at the time of the incident. I worked nights, so I was off duty. All of a sudden, the man overboard whistle sounded, and immediately after, the alarm for mass casualty went off. The ordnance handling officer saw me and told me to get my ass up to the flight deck and don't let anyone get in my way. I flew up 3 decks, even pushing officers out of my way. Our duty during man overboard and mass casualties was to man the weapons elevator in front of the island. That elevator goes down to the mess decks where medical is located next door. The mess decks served as an area for mass casualties to be staged. When I arrived on the flight deck, it looked like a bomb exploded, bodies and blood everywhere. A crew was calling for help to move an aircraft tractor. Apparently, one of the deck chiefs got hit by the wire and partially dragged under. When they pulled the chief out, he had partial amputations of 2 of his limbs and looked like he got hit in the face by either the wire or the solid metal knuckle that holds the wire into the retarding assembly. They had launched helicopters to rescue the pilots who ejected. I immediately manned the sound power telephones for the elevator and got it powered up, did a comms check with the mess deck operator, and opened the door. As soon as the door opened, casualties were being loaded. One young female was on a stretcher crying and looked me directly in the eyes, pleading to me to help her and asking if she was going to die. Oh, man. That was the loneliest feeling I've ever felt in my life. All I could do was try to assure her she was going to get help soon. I still see her clearly in my mind to this day. Like I said above, fortunately we were only off the coast of Virginia and they were able to evac the most wounded to shore by helicopter. Everyone survived their injuries. That's great. The chief, from what I was told, took years to recover but returned to full duty and retired some years later. That day will live with me forever, but the training, teamwork, and response that was shown that day by all, with no loss of life, is a true testament of training and drills kicking in when most needed. Thank you all for what you do. Been away for a while, but now an avid listener on my long travels each week with my current job on the railroad. Respectfully, Tony, Montana Tony. Wow. That is
it's a great
amazing.
description of a horrific accident. It just shows how dangerous having a huge, thick steel cable under tension whipping around, a deck where so many of those guys have to work. And it's a pretty dangerous environment when something doesn't go wrong. So I'm amazed, how well they coped with that. Despite all the injuries.
Yeah, fantastic that everybody survived and recovered.
Exactly. Yeah, no fatalities. That's phenomenal.
And as you said, that's just a testament to, that we can carry over to the things that we do in aviation. The training, the better the training, the more you practice these drills. And like Tyler on the last show talking about his golf course landing, he said his flight instructor just pounded it in over and over and over again about, okay, where are you going to go now? You've lost your engine. Where are you going to land? Where are you going to land? And so when it actually happened, it was something that was almost second nature for him. And obviously the crews on this aircraft carrier, that was second nature to them as well and made a difference. Huge difference. All right. Okay. We're going to wrap up part one. And I thank all the crew members that were able to join us today, which I think is pretty much everybody. That's awesome.
Good job.
Yeah. And we look forward to, and thank you to our live audience. It's always nice to see all of you. Some of you has been a while, but we're glad that you're there, and we're hoping that we'll see many of you again on Saturday morning, I believe.
No, afternoon.
No, Saturday afternoon.
1 p.m.
That's right.
1
Early
o'clock
afternoon on
EDT.
Saturday for us here in Eastern time zone in the U.S. And we're going to do another about the same kind of time frame, length
There's a plain
of
tail.
show. We got a plain tail, and we have some really interesting updates from Captain Nick on a recent trip to London. And so you should make sure that you're here with us if you can be on Saturday. And with that, we're going to go ahead and just sign off, and we'll see you on part two. Well, welcome back. I know it wasn't that long ago that you were listening to us, but that's in real time. Actually, and that's in podcast time. In real time, it's been a couple of days, and we've lost a couple of our hosts, but Captain Nick and I and producer Liz. Yep, we kicked them out because we thought, after reviewing it and talking a little bit about it after the end of the show, we decided, yeah, they're out. They're out. Okay. So we are going to resume some coverage of news that we didn't get to on part one. And we're going to start with this one from Denver7.com, a local news outlet in Denver. Duh. And actually it's one of a couple of news items in this note that we're going to cover here. More issues in the national airspace system. As many as 20 pilots flying into Denver International Airport on Monday afternoon were unable to speak with air traffic controllers for up to 6 minutes due to multiple radio transmitter outages. Several sources have confirmed to Denver 7 investigates. I guess that's their investigatory team at Denver 7 News. Very much like the situation that we talked about in earlier episodes regarding the outage at Newark, they're going to kill me. Newark, New Jersey. Let's see. The frequency outage occurred at the Denver Air Route Traffic Control Center, which is in Longmont, and in part ensures that aircraft have adequate spacing up in the sky as they approach their destination. It's one of 22 such centers in the country, and it serves a large region in 9 states: Arizona, Colorado, Kansas, Montana, Nebraska, New Mexico, South Dakota, my home state, Utah, and Wyoming. Multiple inside sources told Denver 7 Investigates Chief Investigator Tony Kowaleski that the outage occurred around 2 p.m., leaving between 15 and 20 aircraft unable to communicate with air traffic control during a critical time. A controller eventually was able to contact one pilot on what's called a guard line. Now we just call it guard, or a guard frequency. Guard.
Meow.
Which is typically used when a pilot is in distress or when pilots are very bored and they make these terrible animal sounds.
Yes,
and it's very irritating.
If I could get hold of half of those blokes, I'd wring their damn necks.
They'd all be dead.
Yeah, they'd be like dead chickens.
Exactly. This guard frequency is typically used when a pilot's in distress. Everybody that listens to the show already knows that.
It's in a dress? When a pilot's in a dress? So it has to be
not in a
female
dress,
pilots
in
only.
distress. Not that dress, distress.
Yes.
And that pilot was able to contact the other aircraft to tell them to change frequencies. Yeah, that's kind of what we do. That's normal. One inside source said that 4 frequencies from the 2 main towers at the Longmont Center were already out of service. 2 main towers? Again, I think maybe they mean antennas. Air traffic controllers were communicating with pilots on a backup 5th frequency, which went out. It's always good to have a backup 5th.
I was going to say, that's a bit dodgy, isn't it? I mean, they got 4 frequencies out, and they're hanging on to one final frequency, and then, funny old thing, it goes as well.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Redundancy, gotta love it.
Yep.
Impressed.
Okay. So is there really anything else to say here? It's just a part of the ongoing issues with, the infrastructure here, and just again shows that we really need to do something about it.
Well, I thought Duffy's comment at the end was quite telling. We should be using fiber, but it's copper. We use radar from the 1970s. Some of them are from the 80s, but most are from the 70s. So this technology is 50 years old. Actually, the 70s seem quite recent to me, but don't let that worry you. This technology, just like me, is more than 50 years old. That our controllers use to scan the skies, keep the airplanes separate. But he's making a good point. You can't just rely on this to hang on forever eventually, and you should be doing it in stages so it doesn't cost you a bomb when you suddenly realize that you've got to replace everything.
And as we mentioned before, they've been allocated money over the years, but you know how that is, well, at least here in the U.S. with the way we spend money that's allocated by Congress. A lot of times it doesn't get
diverted, does it?
Yeah, it does. It doesn't get spent where it needs to be.
Well, they actually are doing something about it in Newark, Jeff.
Are they? Let's see. FAA restricts Newark airport flights to 56 an hour. From the New York Times.
It's not going to fix the technology, but I suppose it makes it a little safer.
I guess it's kind of a solution, a stopgap solution, until they do.
So when these 56 airplanes in an hour all crash, how many then die?
I don't think that's going to happen, Nick, but
probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, but at least they're doing something for the time being, and hopefully that will help with things. Of course, remember at Newark Airport, Newark Liberty International, they have one of their main runways out of service being renovated. So that is definitely not helping the situation.
I think it comes back on soon, though, and it does in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully it will, and then they maybe can bump that number up from the 56 that they've decided might be the best rate. Let's keep our eyes and ears open on developments or lack
I'm
of.
scanning this news.
All right.
And on the guard line, in case someone needs to call us.
Please monitor guard. All right. Let's see. Now,
just before you go on,
Yep.
we have someone new in the chat room.
We have somebody new in the chat room.
Yeah,
Helen.
Hibbins.
Helen
Is there a
Hibbins.
queue to get in the chat room?
Yeah.
There must be. Hi, Helen.
Listening for about a
Welcome.
year, but she's never made it to the chat room.
Oh, she's still
Helen.
listening. Wow.
Welcome, Helen.
That deserves, a round of
Good
applause
job.
from the crowd.
Definitely.
Yeah. Welcome. I hope now everybody that's in the chat room,
nice to
with a
Helen.
couple of exceptions, most are pretty nice people. And so I'm sure they'll treat you just fine there, Helen.
And Helen, they wish they had Windows 95. That's for sure.
That'd be an upgrade. Okay,
Yeah.
going to B. B, B,
Okay.
B.
Let's
B, B,
go
B, B.
to B. All right. So this happened. Let's see. When did we record? We recorded on Thursday. Wednesday. Okay. So since recording, this accident occurred. A Cessna Citation S550 Citation S/2 November 666DS. I should play some kind of a sound effect. And put my little
we should have
Grim
held this
Reaper.
till our 666 show in 2 shows from now.
Oh, yeah, we should have. You're right, Liz. We should have held it until the episode 666. Anyway, we shouldn't be too glib or flippant here, because this was a tragedy. A Cessna S550, while I was on approach to runway 28 right, they crashed. They were on approach to 28 right at Montgomery Gibbs Executive Airport in San Diego. The aircraft came down in the Tierra Santa military housing community and was destroyed, and about 15 homes and various cars were damaged or destroyed by fire. Authorities have confirmed at least 2 fatalities. The exact number of people on board remains unknown so far. Because this is from the Aviation Safety Network, I believe.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And and that was an initial report, that narrative that I was just reading here. And since then, they've discovered that there were more people on board the jet. I think, how many? 5? Was that right? 6 people on board the jet, and they all passed. And I think that there were some injuries on the ground as well in this neighborhood, but no fatalities.
Property.
Yeah, property damage. Yeah, for sure. So let's see. Where do we start here? We know that the business jet had started their journey somewhere out on the East Coast. Was it Newark?
New Jersey or somewhere.
Like maybe Teterboro or something like that.
Yeah, somewhere like
and then
that.
they stopped en route in Kansas, outside of in Wichita at the Colonel Jabara, the airport that the Atlas, the Dreamlifter, landed mistakenly a few years back. And they refueled, and then they continued their journey. And this is all, I think they left New Jersey like close to midnight, like very late at night. And they were flying all night long here. And so they left the airport in Wichita, continued their journey down to San Diego, their destination being the Montgomery Gibbs Executive Airport. The Montgomery Gibbs Executive Airport is, and this is typical for GA and also corporate kind of flying, 4,598 by 150 feet is their longest runway. And that is pretty short as far as airline standards. Captain Nick and I are used to. I mean, something that short is not typically something that we want to put down a high-speed, high-performance kind of airplane. And the weather conditions in the area were not good. Now, those of you that live in California near the coast, especially in Southern California, they experience something that the Californians like to call marine layer, which is basically a layer of overcast or very low to the ground foggy clouds. I guess fog is a cloud that's close to the ground, so yeah, kind of redundant for me to say that. Anyway, it was foggy. And they were talking with air traffic control and trying to determine what kind of weather conditions that they could encounter. And this is like right in the middle of the night, like 3-something in the morning. And this airport doesn't have a full-time tower facility, so it was closed. The ASOS, which is a system that's an automated weather reporting system, was also out of service for the actual airport itself. But there are several airports in the general area, including Miramar Naval Air Station. You have the San Diego Lindbergh Airport and several others actually. And so they're talking with air traffic control to determine what the weather conditions are. and what kind of approach they're going to attempt to fly to Montgomery Gibbs Executive, and have a little bit of air traffic control communications. And so we're going to listen to that right now.
Station 666 Delta Sierra SoCal approach. The Montgomery ASOS is out of service. Which approach would you like? 6 Delta Sierra, clear direct Nessie, descend pilot discretion, maintain 9,000. 6 Delta Sierra, let me see what I can find out for you.
Nestie is, I don't know if you're showing the approach plate.
I am now.
Okay. Nestie is the final approach, or one of the waypoints on the approach. Let's see, I don't think it's the final approach fix. No, it's the fix that's outside of the final approach fix, Nestie. Okay, let's go back to the recording.
Okay, no problem. Okay, number 6 Delta Sierra, I've got the Miramar automated weather for 0955 Zulu with wind calm, visibility 1/2, and indefinite ceiling 200.
Okay, I'm pausing. That's very, that's right at minimums, or actually in this case below minimums. Of course, this is for Miramar, but it's only a couple of miles from the airport that they're shooting the approach to. So it should be very, very similar weather conditions at Montgomery Gibbs. Let's continue.
6 Delta Sierra, Roger, descend and maintain 5,500. Let me take a look.
Okay, I think they asked, if there was some other weather in the general vicinity that they could, help with their decision making.
6 Delta Sierra, affirmative, a little bit better, but not much. Just showing, standby. Okay, they're showing 1031 Zulu weather, wind calm, visibility 2 1/2, mist, ceiling 300, broken, curtain 300 overcast. 6 Delta Sierra, roger. 6 Delta Sierra, you can make descent okay for there, or you want me to turn you out to the south a little bit?
Okay, and what that meant to me, that particular bit of information from the controller, his concern that they may be a little bit higher than what he's used to seeing for people executing this particular approach. And so that may also possibly mean that as far as being stabilized and maybe being a little bit hot on the speeds and energy might be a factor here.
6 Delta Sierra SoCal, you can make descent okay from there, you want me to turn you out to the south? 6 Delta Sierra, roger, 5 miles from Nestie, cross out or above 3800, clear down Av runway 2, red approach. November 6 Delta Sierra, report your FR cancellation after landing via the phone. Do you have the number? 6 Delta Sierra, roger that, and frequency change approved.
Montgomery traffic citation 666 Delta Sierra, 3 miles final 28.
Okay, the next thing you're going to hear are some clicks on the microphone, and that's to turn on the pilot-controlled landing. Again, the tower is closed, so pilots are responsible for turning on the pilot-controlled lighting system. Okay, 7 clicks. He makes his required call on the when the tower's closed. The what's it called? The
CTAF.
CTAF. Thank you. The Common Traffic Advisory Frequency, which is normally or usually the tower frequency. But since the tower's closed, he just told them they're on a 3-mile final. And then you hear the 7 clicks. And of course, it's nighttime and it's dark. And not only that, it's overcast and foggy. And visibility's not great. So you definitely, even if it was a clear evening, you'd have to have lighting so you could identify the runway and make a safe landing. And in this case, very critical for the lighting to be on so you can help identify the airport and the runway. And in another article that was sent in by Radio Roger, they indicate in this article, that was from the New York Times, that the runway approach alignment lights or lighting, part of the approach lighting system, were NOTAMed out of service. So the lights that help you, that extend from the end of the runway toward where you are coming in, from which you're coming in, help you align with the runway. This is a very short runway, as I mentioned, only less than 5,000 feet long. You need all the help you can get to make sure that you're aligned properly with the runway. Well, those lights were out of service. And I also mentioned to Captain Nick before we started recording today that the actual approach lighting system that they have installed there are medium intensity approach lights, not high intensity. So that might also be a factor here. Foggy conditions, hard to see. You want really bright lighting, at least to help you identify the airport and the runway. And then as you get closer, if you think about it, you can always do some more clicks and lower the intensity so you're not blinded by the light.
So, Jeff, did they hit some wires coming down?
Yeah, so on the approach, if you'll put the approach plate back up, you will see, and the one that I have the little red arrow on would be the one that I would prefer you display. Okay, on the so they were proceeding directly to Nesty. They were cleared for the approach, and there is inside of Palos, which is just under 3 miles, so about the point, or right before, or right after they made that transmission that they were on a 3-mile final to the airport. So just inside that, between them and the runway itself, there is an indicator on the approach plate of an obstacle at 554 feet, which are some high intensity. I don't know if you call it high intensity. Wires? High tension electrical wiring towers with the associated wiring. And also, I looked on Google Earth, and it also happens to be kind of on these electrical wires are on a like a ridge line, so they're really poking up pretty high, and they are definitely something that you have to be careful about. And of course, in the profile view of this approach, as we are looking at here on screen, there is. I'll go back to the approach plate. Yeah. Well, I guess I thought that this was maybe like a step down to keep you from hitting the wires, but no, that's just the vertical descent point. So never mind. So yeah, go to that next one, Liz, please. Okay, so this is taken from the ADS-B data and then superimposed on Google Earth. And what we're looking at right now on screen, and we'll have this in the show notes for you, is the view from the airport looking to the east, southeast, and the path of the aircraft coming in. And then if you'll go to the next one, I believe, yes, this one, we're looking at it from the south looking north, and the airport is over on the left just off screen. But this is the final approach path. And right before it looks like a normal descent path there. And they come up on this ridge line, and then I don't know if you can make them out in this, but there are some electrical cable poles along the top of this ridge line. You can kind of see that dirt road, and they're kind of along that. And then you'll see the path of the aircraft, the ADS-B path. All of a sudden, the aircraft pops up pretty dramatically and then back down again. And I believe that they're going to find that lowest point there on that ADS-B path before you see the spike upward is where they probably hit the electrical wires. And that has been confirmed in that second news story from New York Times that it was another report that I was watching, a news report. They were talking and showing the actual electrical cables being damaged. So it has been confirmed that the aircraft did encounter those electrical cables, and what we're seeing there is probably the reaction that the airplane had, or perhaps the pilots had, trying to climb the airplane back up after hitting the wires, and then of course at that point they were out of control and they crashed into that military neighborhood. And yeah, again, this is all speculation, of course. This is not, the NTSB, FAA, they're all investigating this, and they'll determine with surety what happened here. But that's the best information that we have at this point.
I am wondering what they had in the way of glide path assistance for this approach, because, it looks to me like if they continued their angle of descent, they would have hit the ground. If they hadn't hit the wires, they'd have hit the ground some distance before the airport. So it looks to me like they'd set up too steep an approach, or certainly they were descending too fast for the distance they still had to travel to get to the runway. So I have to say, what were they using to navigate? There's an LPV approach which has a minimum of 673 feet, but if they didn't have sort of glide path assistance, they should have had a break-off height of either 750 or 840 feet, and all of them, they're high considering the weather conditions. I don't think they would have had sight of the runway at those altitudes, and the visibility required was 3/4 of a mile. Now we know in the adjacent airfields the visibility was half a mile, which is well below that required, in addition to the fact that they're making an approach into a runway which doesn't have great lighting. They're missing a significant portion of the approach lighting, which would normally help them acquire the threshold. And even then, the runway lighting is only medium intensity, which is not what you need when you've got these kind of foggy conditions. You need something bright that penetrates the mist and fog that's around. So I'm not sure why they were coming down so fast, and I'm going to hazard a guess in that they were probably concentrating outside the cockpit perhaps more than they should have been, because they were trying really hard to gain a visual on the airport environment so they could complete a landing instead of concentrating on the angle of their approach. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I agree. As Captain Nick says, we're not sure. This approach does allow for the precision path all the way down the LPV. Not all aircraft are certified to fly all the way down to those minimums there, but we're just making the assumption that this aircraft was equipped to do that. And I agree with you. I mean, when you're getting closer and closer to the ground and you're getting closer and closer to that runway, you're thinking, okay, where is it? You're focused so much outside of the jet, and sometimes your instrument scan is lacking, and that's like the worst place for it to be lacking. Yeah. Truly a tragedy.
Absolutely. The crash had tragic consequences because not only did it kill everyone on board, but there was an enormous amount of damage and fire done on the ground in that housing estate, and that makes this a double tragedy, really.
Yeah. And speaking of the people on board, included in this this article that Radio Roger sent, there were 2 rock music veterans who were excited to fly together from New Jersey to San Diego. One was Daniel Williams, a former drummer for the metalcore band The Devil Wears Prada. The other was Dave Shapiro, a music agent who worked with Sum 41, never heard of that, Hanson, I've heard of that one, Jefferson Starship, yes, and other artists, and was also a pilot who ran his own aviation business. In an Instagram story posted on Wednesday night, Mr. Williams shared a photo of their plane, a Cessna Citation, on the tarmac, and 2 more photos of himself in the co-pilot seat. And the caption was, "Here we go." But after crossing the country, the jet hit power lines and crashed into a residential neighborhood, which is what we were just speaking of there. All 6 people aboard killed, 8 people on the ground were injured, 10 homes damaged, and several vehicles as well. So here's the deal. They're going to have to determine who was actually at the controls. Was it the drummer, Williams, who was at the controls, or was he the co-pilot, or were both of these former musicians, or not former, but rock music, what do they call them? Rock music veterans. Were they both up there in front, or did they have another pilot that they had hired to fly this jet? I don't know. They're still trying to determine who all was on board, who was killed, and who was flying the jet, but it certainly seems to be pointing to that. Now, just because there wasn't a quote-unquote professional pilot, somebody that does this for a living at the controls of the aircraft, doesn't necessarily mean at all that they weren't fully qualified to be able to fly this airplane on an instrument approach to minimums. But I think we're going to find that they should have done the right thing by saying this is too low, maybe not even attempting the approach to begin with, or if so, really making sure that they initiated a go-around procedure, a missed approach procedure when they reached the missed approach point and or the decision altitude and couldn't see anything.
Yep. Yeah, we highlighted a few areas where they, a cautious pilot had already been the idea of going into this particular airport and perhaps diverting up to San Francisco where the weather was considerably better. So, there were lots of decisions, the lighting, the lack of lighting, the weather in the area, the steepness of the descent, the fatigue they may have been feeling after coming all that way, the time of the day. Of course, they're at a circadian low. They're not perhaps operating as sharply as they normally would. There are lots of good reasons why they should really have gone, let's try again tomorrow when the weather's a bit better. Let's pop up to San Francisco or somewhere else where the weather's acceptable.
Palm Springs.
Take have a few beers and a nap, and then tomorrow morning when the sun's up, we're all feeling a bit better. We'll take the aircraft into this airport, Montgomery.
Yep.
But there you go. There for the grace of God.
Okay. So I'm sure we'll be, keeping our eyes and ears open for updates on this tragedy as well. And as soon as we get that, we'll pass it on to you. We were going to try to knock out another news item, but we're running out of time here in part 2. And I think now would be a good time for us to do some more getting to know us. And that's the music you hear in the background. And that's the segment of the show, I guess the second one on this particular show, where we get to know what Captain Nick has been up to since we last recorded.
I've been looking forward to this. First of all, I just wanted to say a big thanks to AJ on the last show, who put my friend Simon and his boy Harry in touch with Virgil, who lives in Florida. My friends are flying out to Florida, and they want to go and see the museum on the Naval Air Station, Pensacola, the Aviation Museum. They're great aviation fans, and Virgil has volunteered. He lives very close, and he's ideally placed to help them because they need an American national escort to get them on the airbase. But I just had Simon round for a cup of tea, actually. He finished a bowling match and was heading home. And he said, actually, there is another problem. That they're still not sure, even with that assistance, that they'll be able to get on. But I'm sure when they get there, they'll be able to sort it out.
Oh,
anyway,
is it because it's AJ's friend? Yeah.
Yes. Well, I think
yeah.
they're worried that Virgil will be involved with the Thunderbirds. He's the pilot of Thunderbird 2. So, he might be busy out there on Tracy Island. Anyway, thanks very much indeed for anyone there who was going to help. We'll see what happens. Okay, so that's from the last show. And I was heading off to London, would you believe, to go to my annual, I say annual, it's held for a year, but I haven't gone very often in recent years. There's a 43 Squadron, my very first fighter squadron, association reunion that happens every year in the most fabulous place, the RAF Club in London. And I had planned to go, and then when RH found out, RH from that dreadful...
Peter Tarantelli told him.
Not familiar at all with
Peter Tarantelli dobbed me in. He set me up for a fall and said to RH, hey, did you know Captain Nick's going to be in London? Are you going to be in London? Because RH is now on a commercial airline, and he regularly comes to the big smoke of our capital city. And RH got in touch with me and put me on the spot, so I felt obliged to meet him. Oh, Lord. Anyway, I met RH at our usual drinking establishment that we tend to go to prior to the dinner. So we usually, preload with a few beers, and we were sitting there quietly. RH actually got there before me, and he had already bought me a beer when I walked in, so I felt obliged to sit with him and have a chat. So there now follows a party political broadcast on behalf of the opposing bases party, and you can listen and enjoy. I'm in a pub in London. Would you believe this, Jeff? And, I was going to be here anyway. It's called Ye Grapes, which actually, if you look back into Old English, ye actually means the, and it's pronounced the same, so it's the Grapes. And it's in Shepherd Market, not far from the RAF Club. And I wandered in to meet a few of the old 43 Squadron guys who tend to come here for a beer before our reunion. And this erstwhile, out of work, scruffy-looking American just hijacked me and dragged me up to the bar and wanted to buy me beer. So you better explain what the hell is going on.
Hello, everybody. It's RH here on Coincidence in London on a trip. And your wonderful listener, Peter Tarantelli, sent a text the other day and said, hey, I think you might, if you're in London, I think Captain Nick will be there on Saturday. And it just so happened I was going to be here. So we got together and figured out what worked out with timing, and here I am at Ye Grapes with a Thai restaurant on top and the club soccer field, football field down here on a beautiful Saturday afternoon in London, seeing my old friend, old pilot, Captain Nick.
I know, isn't it a coincidence? I just find this sort of thing absolutely incredible. You come right the way across the pond. You better tell me what this trip is when you get a moment and what exactly you're doing, because we haven't caught up with you for a long time. But I just find it remarkable that here I am in London. I don't come over very often, perhaps once or twice a year. And RH is here. Here he is, in the flesh. Go on. Tell us what's been going on in your life.
So it's been a couple of years since I sent an update to the show, but in late 2023, I left air traffic world and went back to the airline world. And I fly for an airline we affectionately call Penguin Airlines.
Is that Jackass Penguin Airlines? Because that's who we've adopted as our show bird now.
Oh,
the Jackass Penguin.
The flightless bird.
Yeah, a flightless bird, because we're going that way. And also they're jackasses. They're a real penguin from South Africa.
The Penguin Airlines name came from a comment AG made on the show several years ago about his brain being like an iceberg. And there are penguins on it that represent his knowledge. And when one comes out of the sea, another one has to jump off. In other words, he only has so much room on the iceberg. So that theme has taken on. This is Penguin Airlines. I'm on a fleet out of the New York area, and I'm in London a lot, probably 2 to 4 times a month.
Oh, wow.
I'm over here for a 3-day trip. We leave at night, and I got here this morning. So we left Friday night. I arrived early this morning. This is one of the earlier arrivals that we have, and I leave really early tomorrow. So That's a typical week for me. Is 2 flights out and back to London and go home for a few days.
What is your machinery of choice?
I'm on the 757, 767 fleet.
Okay.
And for the London flights, we are almost primarily on the 767-300. And it's a 3-person crew. And my seniority puts me right in the IRO, International Relief Officer, bunkie spot. So I get to watch people fly the airplane over here and back.
And what do you think of being on the other side of the cockpit door?
I love it.
Did you
I absolutely love it.
Other side of the
Yes. I saw the tie-in to APG. I love it. I'm glad to be back. I really loved air traffic, but the timing was right in the industry, and I took an opportunity to come back, and I'm really glad I did. So I'm almost 2 years into my Penguin Airlines career and having a blast, going all over Europe and the domestic stuff we do on the 757. So I do get to touch that every once in a while. Hawaii, South America, France, Germany, Italy, Portugal, Scotland, and here in London a lot.
That's good route structure. That's really right. That's cherry picking some nice places.
As they say at Penguin, we have the best flying in the system on this fleet out of New York. We get some great city pairs. So
except of course when you have to deal with the air traffic controllers.
Of course.
What's it like being on the receiving end?
I have to turn off my air traffic brain because it's a little bit frustrating. It's so weird how in the United States, and I appreciate a lot more of your comments that you sent to the show, the air traffic in the United States is vastly different than Europe, incredibly different from London. London is a whole different world of air traffic.
And you have to explain that difference. Well, are they ultra polite here?
They are, actually. They are very nice. Very professional, I would say, always, compared to mostly in the U.S. A lot less snark, a lot less attitude. Very consistent in the phraseology in London. Very organized. The procedures are a little bit odd at first, but once you get used to them, they're really managing their traffic a little bit better on the ground in terms of setting you up. Once you are airborne, the conflict is pretty much resolved at that point.
Oh, I'm going to have to get Adam and get him to listen to this because he'll be getting all big-headed and you know what they're like.
There are some things that they do over here that are a little bit funny.
Please.
They won't clear multiple airplanes to land, which you and I have spoken about, but they'll have you, as the pilot, determine when it's safe to go out on the runway before or after an arrival, behind, the phraseology behind. Behind the airplane on a 2-mile final, runway 27 right, line up and wait behind. Like, wait, what? You can't clear 2 airplanes to land, but you're going to leave it up to me when I go out here. So I find that a little bit strange, but once you get used to that,
it makes you look out of the window occasionally.
It does.
At the airplanes on finals, which
it's weird. Did you know that airplanes actually have windows? We can see outside.
And life going across the pond, what's that like?
Really nice. I think it's the flights go by fast. Coming over here, it actually takes less time to get here than it does to get to LA. So the flights coming over are really quick. With 3 of us, we divvy up the breaks, so it goes by. You get a nice little break. And going back's a little bit longer, but I think London's the perfect mix. It's a perfect length of a flight. It's not too long. It's not too short. It's efficient for your schedule. I love it.
Sounds absolutely fantastic. I'm just checking to see if that was no, it wasn't. I thought that might be one of my old mates, Timmy. Right. All right. Any other messages? You want to wish anyone well?
I wish everybody at the Airline Pilot Guy show well. I haven't spoken with you guys in a while, and I still listen. I can't listen to every single show, but I do hear you guys. I enjoy hearing you guys catch up in the Getting to Know You segment and hearing how everything's going. It's great to see Nick in retirement. You look great. It's treating you very well.
Well, I am dressed in my best bib and tucker.
You do.
I'm booted and spurred. I've got my association tie on, all my little badges. I'm in a 2-piece suit. After all, it is quite warm. It's like 22 degrees out there. But the beer is helping a lot. And sadly, we're only going to be here for a couple of hours before I have to head off to a dinner. And what are you going to do this evening?
I'll go get some dinner and head back, get to bed early, and we have a really early wake-up call tomorrow. So
all right, okay.
The timing will work out really good for me today. An early dinner and early to bed.
Well, I wish I could invite you into the club and show you around because it's really quite a thing to see.
Well, next time with a little bit of notice, maybe we can.
Well, I'm not a member, so it makes a bit of a problem. I'm going there because of the dinner. All right, excellent. Lovely to see you.
And thank you for setting up the audio and letting me say hey to everybody. Everybody at the APG, hey, I missed you guys, and it's been great. And
nice, lovely.
So nice of you to come meet me, Nick. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. And have a real safe trip home. And, thumbs up with your career. I hope it continues to blossom. Do you feel like you've kind of left AJ in the dust behind you?
AG is doing great. I do feel like he misses me. He's having a hard time getting by without me, but we handle it every day with a phone call. I get him closer to happiness.
Sounds good. Sounds great. All right. I'm going to let you send it back to Jeff in the studio, please.
All right. From Ye Grapes in the Mayfair district of London, RH signing out.
Cheers. Back to you in the studio, Jeff.
You'd think he'd know how to send it back to me in the studio, but you had to help him. Yeah. Come on, RH.
It was what you get with these amateurs.
Exactly.
Just great, though.
Yeah,
it was
very,
great.
very nice.
He is one of the nicest guys, and he is invariably in a great mood. I've never seen him looking a bit down or looking tiny. He's always full of beans, and it was an absolute pleasure.
Well, those who are mentally challenged they don't know any better, so they always seem to be very happy people.
Nick, do you want to talk about the club a bit now?
Yeah, I need to move on because I did take a few pictures of the RAF club because I couldn't show RH around. So it's a really old club. It was formed sort of on the same year that the Royal Flying Corps in 1916 was formed. And inside it's got an extremely historic building, and it's got every single crest of every RAF or RFC squadron that was formed. And of course, you've got to go and find your own squadron. So I had a look around, and all these framed pictures of the crest, and they're actually the original drawings that were submitted to the I forget what he's called.
Chief Herald or whatever the guy.
Yeah, it is. Because they're heraldic crests. They have to be approved. So I had to go around and find the 43 Squadron crest, so that's it there. And there's all the other squadrons there as well. But the dinner, of course, starts with pre-dinner drinks, and everyone's there admiring everyone else and starting to live old times and checking which table you're at.
And the room of crashed aircraft pictures in the background on the screen.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
I know,
okay.
great.
Set the mood.
This year was devoted to the period when the squadron flew the Hawker Hunter. So there's lots of pictures of crashed Hunters.
Okay.
They're the best pictures, yeah. And, it's in what they call the Sovereign's Room, so it is very nicely appointed. And it was a proper, three-course meal with service, etc., and it was absolutely brilliant. Afterwards, there were some speeches from our association president, Derek, who, actually, I don't know whether, I think he might be the chairman. And he was the president was on his anyway. Some great speeches. It was really nice. And just wandering around, I happened to pop my nose into one of the bars downstairs, which is full of paintings of. There's Churchill there in his. I can't quite see how many stripes he's got. It's Chief Marshal or. Air Vice Marshal's uniform. There's Dowding and some of the other commanders of the Air Force during the World War II. And there is the most fantastic stained glass window at the end of the building now, which I had to take some pictures of because that's new to me. I hadn't seen that before, but it just depicts various aspects of the wartime flying of the various aircraft in our history. There's even an old Harrier there. Yeah, there is. It's a marvelous place to go and visit. There's, of course, I was there quite recently interviewing that wonderful pilot who was 103 years old and talked to us about his career in mosquitoes. So it was great to be back. Certainly a lovely evening. The food was good too. It was delightful to give you a little view of that. And of course, if you're a member of another affiliated club, I'm sure the United States Air Force have one.
Reciprocal arrangements.
Yeah, you can have a reciprocal arrangement and get a cheap hotel room in there. They're very nice, or go and play squash or whatever you want to do in the RAF club. Great facilities. So that was last week. That was absolutely brilliant. Thoroughly enjoyed that.
Do you want to do cover art quickly?
Yeah, cover art quickly. We had some great suggestions. I'm not going to go into them all, but there were Burning Dingle Dangles, Two Captain Trouble Upset Aircraft, Viking Captains. But we had, of course, an incident with a young child being fed wine and some afterburner issues or questions. So I had to combine those, and it seemed appropriate to come up with a good pilot, stay young for it. So that baby, I'm not quite sure whether it's he or a she, is holding a bottle of grape juice, which is effectively what wine is, with a petite on top. I thought that was quite good. And the bottle's called Afterburner. And then there, of course, is an airplane with an afterburner, toy airplane.
And do I see a little jackass penguin?
Yeah, you do see the little fluffy jackass penguin being squashed there. So that didn't appear on the actual show one because I put it in the wrong place and Jeff didn't spot it. So that's my fault. Sorry about that, Jeff.
It's a limited edition now, then.
It is. Now, if you were looking for the numbers and things, well, have a look at this because in a very blurry nose position on the nose is 663. And if you want to find the show logo, you have to look on the foil that surrounds the top of the bottle. And there it is.
Very nice.
In
below
all
the
its
nipple.
glory. Yes,
yeah,
right
that
by
big
the
old
nipple. Yes, I know. If anyone wants an Acme logo on their nipple, then just let me know.
Okay.
Great stuff, Nick.
He can take care of that for you. All right. Yeah. So 663, our last episode, was recorded while I was at Pensacola Beach. And the next day, I left early in the morning, got back to Atlanta before the bad traffic on Friday afternoons. And then I did my normal weekend singing at church. And that's pretty much it. Pretty boring. But yeah.
No, not boring at all.
That's my life. And yeah, that's it. And then as far as I don't recall if we have any coffee fund notifications.
We'll verify next show.
We'll combine it. If you were someone who contributed to the coffee fund, then please know that we'll talk about you and acknowledge your fine contribution on the next episode. So for now, we're running kind of out of time. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get to any feedback, but we definitely want to make sure that we do this episode's installment of the Old Pilot's Plain Tale. And in this case, it's RAF Form 414, Volume 35.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales. RAF Form 414, Volume 35. I had flown a couple of supernumerary trips to John F. Kennedy Airport in New York, sitting in the back of the cockpit, watching how it was done. But now it was my turn to clamber into the hot seat to start my line training with Virgin Atlantic. I was also flying with the chief pilot, so absolutely no pressure. There was something of an advantage flying an aircraft so new to the industry and completely new to us. Unlike the other fleet in our company, the 747 chaps, whose aircraft had been around since dinosaurs roamed the jungles of Pangaea, our trainers didn't know the aircraft like the backs of their hands. The Boeing boys knew every nut and bolt, every cast iron rivet, and even where all the depleted uranium was. Yes, I kid you not, the early 747s used chunks of depleted uranium as mass balance weights for the outboard elevators, upper rudders, and to counter the weight of the captain's wallet. Our trainers were just about as much in the dark about how an Airbus worked as everyone else, particularly since the manuals barely brushed the surface in explanation, and that was assuming you could decipher the appalling translation that was an odd mixture of French and English, generally known as franglais, and which employed the most confusing grammar of both languages combined. Ambiguity had nothing on those early Airbus publications. A classic example resulted in an A340 unexpectedly slowing down to a crawl halfway across the Atlantic. You probably know that the transatlantic track system was not under radar control. It was flown entirely on a procedural basis. This meant that separation between aircraft relied on everyone sticking rigidly to the route, altitude and speed that they had been allocated, reducing their crossing speed from Mach 0.82 down to the slowest safe clean speed, referred to as green dot since it was indicated on the ASI strip by a small green circle, was therefore a major inconvenience. I might mention that many of the 100-plus computers that ran the 340, controlling everything from the flight controls to the toilet flushing buttons, used tried and tested processors. Nothing fancy for the conservative Airbus engineers. They wanted stuff that was, above everything else, reliable. So they used Intel 286s and 386s, and the step to Pentiums was still some way in the future. Normally this had no bearing on how the aircraft operated at all. After all, who cared if the toilet took 3 milliseconds to start sucking away the digested results of your 3-course meal, or 4? One device in which the lag did become apparent, however, were the MCDUs, our multi-purpose control and display units, which we used to interact with the FMGC, the Flight Management Guidance Computer, which did what it said on the tin. It guided the aircraft along the chosen route, which we'd laboriously typed in at the start of the flight. The problem with slow processors only became apparent if one needed to flick through multiple pages to get to where you wanted to go, because a first officer's energetic mashing of a function button could be done just a trifle faster than those early computers could register the key press, activate the selected operation, and change the page to display the new information. However, the computer's memory could store up to 36 key presses. I might also add that the rows of multifunction keys that sat on either side of the screen were called multifunction for a good reason. As the screens changed, their function often changed as well, as was indicated by the menu cues that appeared beside each button. On this day, the aforementioned first officer mashed his chosen key a bunch of times to get where he was going, and then waited for the flickering screens to catch up. He was dismayed to note that when the display arrived at his chosen page, it didn't stop there. The MCDU had remembered all those extra button pushes and continued on to the descent page. What's more, the button he had been mashing now showed that it was in charge of activating the approach phase of flight. The unstoppable torrent of button pushes continued as the approach phase was magically activated, but there was one more step required, the amber confirm button. In horror, he watched the confirm button press itself, which metamorphized the aircraft from cruise phase to the approach phase, whereupon the engines came to idle as the speed automatically slowed in preparation for flap deployment. To be fair, not much else had changed, and the manual selection of their previous cruise speed returned the 340 to its correct velocity. But how to get the FMGC back into the cruise phase? There followed several hours of panicked flicking of the FCOM pages, but not having ever anticipated this kind of finger trouble, they were of no use. An HF phone patch to the company engineers also proved fruitless, and they continued to destination ignorant of a cure. We all found out courtesy of a memo which flew around the fleet, advising the button-pushing maniacs amongst us to resist the urge to press before the menu had changed, and to inform us all that simply re-entering the cruise altitude into the McDo would cure the problem. In the same vein, every new Airbus we possessed had a large company notebook on the flight deck, into which everyone scribbled interesting facts that they'd discovered about the aircraft, little gems of information, tricks to get around problems, useful circuit breakers to cure issues, and suggestions on how to make our operation better. Every now and then the trainers would copy out good suggestions in their best handwriting, and they would eventually appear in the company training manuals. Along with the chief pilot, I was being babysat by a proper first officer who sat shotgun behind me, watching my every move. Since the captain was the pilot flying, he couldn't keep track of everything I was doing, so the shotgun's job was to pick up and correct any errors that the skipper missed. The wrong kind of chap in this job could easily have made my life an absolute nightmare by picking on the tiniest detail or jumping in so fast I didn't have a chance to act on my own accord. I was lucky, and the lovely, calm Steve Ford was my rostered mentor for this trip. Rather than making a show of my myriad of mistakes, more often than not he just leant over to my right side and whispered quietly his prompts. As I was soon to realize, Steve was also an ideal role model, with his quiet efficiency and attention to detail. So by following his lead, I was able to pick up a bunch of good habits that stood me in good stead for the next few years. One thing that I didn't feel was under pressure to perform. I was completely new to the civil world, and most of the Virgin trainers understood that. Whilst a capable enough pilot, I lacked many of the basic skills that an airline pilot understood. A classic were the run-of-the-mill radio calls that were second nature to anyone in the industry, but I hadn't given a proper position report for, forever, so they didn't really trip off the tongue. In my military world, we didn't use ATIS, the Automatic Terminal Information Service, a continuous broadcast of recorded information sent out by an airfield, typically including weather conditions, runway news, and other important and often unimportant details like numerous cranes in the vicinity. In the RAF, if I wanted to know that stuff, I asked my controller, and it was their job to keep me informed of any changes. After all, fighter pilots were the centre of the universe, with egos the size of their red-hot reheats. Now, however, I was a lowly first officer, and one both under training and under probation to boot. However, They also knew that most ex-military pilots were pretty good at picking stuff up and usually didn't need to be told things twice. What's more, Ding-a-ling, as we called the chief pilot when we thought he couldn't hear us, was a good trainer. He was patient and relaxed, and a damn good pilot as well. As our flight progressed, I struggled a bit through the transatlantic clearance procedure, call checks and such, but I was aided by the easygoing and gentle Irish lilt of the Shamwick controller, who probably guessed I wasn't his usual fare of competent pilots who would rattle off the clearance in one breath. Once established on our track, I got out the Atlantic crossing map, plotted our course, and 10 minutes after the entry point I took our position data from the on-side inertial reference system page, the number 1 system, since the captain's autopilot was the one engaged, and plotted it on the map. The cross neatly overlaid the track I'd drawn. I'd hardly had time to draw breath before we passed 20 west, and I popped my headphones on to give my position report to Shamwick. There was a queue of aircraft also trying to get in touch, but the controller eventually heard my call and replied. Before I retired, this kind of position reporting would be handled automatically by data link, but back in the 90s it was still done the old way, bellowing over the HF radio and fighting to be heard over the dozens of aircraft also shouting. In between my housekeeping tasks, Ding-a-ling got out a sheet of subjects that he was supposed to discuss as part of the learning process, the sort of things essential to the conduct of a line flight. We talked about the load sheet, filled out by our traffic officer but checked and confirmed by the captain. It was a convoluted mess of numbers and graphs that covered a big sheet of paper and was pretty much double Dutch to me. I'd done the RAF Truckies Weight and Measures course and scraped through the CAA exam, barely hitting the minimum pass mark, but in all my years of flying fighters it was something that I'd never needed to worry about. In my new occupation, I was not only required to understand how to check it for gross errors, but should we divert, I had to be able to do one myself from scratch. Now, many of you, bored up cutting your teeth on this task, will be scoffing at my ignorance, but having to do it for real filled me with dread. Errors could lead to the horrible situation of trying to fly the aircraft outside its center of gravity envelope, overweight, underweight, or incorrectly trimmed, all potentially disastrous situations. And this wasn't a theoretical issue. My father had kept me spellbound, telling me about a VC-10 in his company, then British Caledonian Airways, that needed to be ferried from Heathrow to Gatwick, only 20 or 30 miles down the road. As he told it, the aircraft attempted to land with a centre of gravity very close to the aft limit. This contributed to an extremely heavy landing and several bounces, which damaged the aircraft so severely it was written off. For 25 years I carried a wonderful Noddy's Guide to Load Sheets, produced by our ground training instructors, in case I should be put in this situation. But the few times I had to tackle the task, it was only for a simple change, like offloading a sick passenger, or a quick splash and dash to refuel and carry on to destination, which was a much simpler task. By the way, for those brought up without Noddy, he was the character in a series of children's books by Enid Blyton, who was naive and a bit innocent, so needed things to be explained simply. As the ocean slipped by below, the centre console became covered in open manuals, and I filled several pages of notes in scribbled prompts to read up on the stuff I was obviously ignorant about. It was all fairly simple, but there seemed to be an awful lot of it, and I began to worry if I would ever assimilate all that was needed. Our meals came and went when Ding-a-ling quietly handed an empty half-pint bottle to the cabin crew and asked if I had mine. Apparently, with so much good quality liquor on board, it was common for the pilots to get their whiskey flasks topped up every flight. Not something I felt confident doing then or in the future, and to be fair, as the company expanded, that sort of thing just fell out of fashion. My captain bore us around the Canarsie approach with the practiced hand of someone who'd done it many times before, and as we settled under the tarmac of 13 left, my shotgun helped me out with the tricky radio switching between tower, ground and ramp that we had to accomplish in short order since we didn't have a long taxi in. Having parked up, we gathered our stuff and waited for 250 passengers to exit through the 2 right door and into the international terminal. It was strange to be isolated in our little section of the aircraft. Sometimes it felt that the flight deck was all that existed of our machine, forgetting the enormous length of aluminium tube that stretched out behind us. I was also pondering our return sector, as assuming the weather didn't preclude my having a go, the next flight would be my first landing with an aircraft full of passengers. I was anticipating it with nervous delight, but had they known, I very much doubt our fare-paying passengers would have anticipated the event with quite as much pleasure.
And after experiencing it with great displeasure. Yeah.
Well, I didn't. No one forwarded me the complaints, so I felt that it was going to be. We'll find out on the next plane tale. Oh, there's certainly the next logbook one anyway.
That was good though.
Looking forward to it. And Liz, producer Liz, made a nice comment there regarding after landing on the Canarsie 13 left approach. That was the beginning of your incredible relationship, love affair with JFK ATC.
Yes. Well, actually, it was so funny because Steve beside me kept having to translate what was being said to me, so I had some idea what to reply with. It was a bit of a joke. So I was just gobsmacked as to how busy the damn place was and how hard it was to cope with everything that was going on. But, it's something you kind of get used to eventually, I suppose.
You're on request.
Great one. Well, I think we got to go right from there to a wrap-up now.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to continue with any more feedback on this episode, episode 664, which makes Liz happy that we can transfer all of the feedback that we were going to attempt to cover on this episode, and we're going to move it to the next one, 665. So we should be doing that sometime next week. So stay tuned, please. As always, you'll hear how you can follow us on the social medias, or the social meds, I like to call it. But before I do that, we're going to point you over to our website, airlinepilotguy.com, where you'll find all kinds of good stuff. And now Captain Nick is going to tell you about those social meds.
Apparently.
Yeah.
It says here that if you are a Facebook friend, then you can find us on Facebook. Just have a look for Airline Pilot Guy. That's all one word. On X, we're at APG Crew. On the Instagram pages, we're very similar. We're just the /APG Crew. And on YouTube, look for Airline Pilot Guy. Again, all one word.
Very good. Thank you very much, sir. And also, we have a Slack group, a bunch of slackers there. Hello? Can you tell us about Slack?
Okay, but I'm dripping wet.
All right, come on over here and tell us all about it, please.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. Slack is a communication, coordination, and sharing platform that works on your mobile, laptop, or browser. On Slack, we share news and ideas, we suggest episode and Plain Tales topics, we plan events and meetups. To get into the Slack team, please email me at slack@airlinepilotguy.com. That's SLACK, Sierra Lima Alpha Charlie Kilo @airlinepilotguy.com. Or send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @Hillel, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel, spelled Hotel India 11 Echo 1, and see you in Slack.
Thanks a lot, Hillel.
I need a towel. I got shampoo in my eyes.
All right, I'll be right there.
Did you say he got poo in his eyes?
No, shampoo.
Oh, shampoo. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hillel. Sorry, man.
That would be a major problem for sure if it were without the sham part.
Yeah.
Speaking of shams, here is our producer, Liz. Thank you for all the hard work that you do in preparing for the show and all the stuff during the show, and it's a lot. So
wow.
We do appreciate that.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. Whoa. And also, we'd like to thank our live audience for being here with us today, including Helen. She's here for the first time, and hopefully nobody scared her away.
She just went off to get her tea. So
she went off to get her tea.
Tea time called. So
tea time calls. Okay, very good.
Hopefully she'll be back.
Yeah, and let's see.
She's just gone to get a gin and tonic. You know?
Yeah, wouldn't you, really?
Yeah, I would, yeah. How else are you going to get through this show?
Yeah, no kidding. She should have done that before she joined the chat room.
She
it would have been a lot easier to stomach all of this.
Now, Nick, did you get a oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't know what I was going to wrap things up.
But yeah, wrap it up.
Okay, let's do that. Let's wrap it up, and then we'll talk about the titles. All right, and so thank you one and all for listening to our show and recommending it to your enemies. And in the meantime, wishing you clear skies and limited visibility and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Goodbye.
See you next time.
Yeah, he's up in the sky. It's the airline pilot guy.
Good day.
Now look at them yo-yos, that's the way you do it. You talk a lot on the APG. Now that ain't working, that's the way you do it. Money for flying and your beer for free. Now that ain't working, that's the way you do it. Let me tell you, them guys ain't dumb. Maybe get a little blister on your finger. Maybe get a blister on your thumb. We've got to fly these McDonnell Douglas. We've got to fly these Airbuses. We've got to move these passengers. And we don't do it for free. See that little pilot with the stripes and the mustache? Yeah, buddy, that's his own hair. That little pilot flies his own jet airplane. That little pilot is a millionaire. We've got to fly these McDonnell Douglas. We've got to fly these Airbuses. We've got to move these passengers. And we don't do it for free. I used to be such a good pilot till I started APG. I opened doors for little old ladies, I helped them to their seats. Airline pilot guy, I fly America. Oh, airline pilot guy, he can land in heavy fog. I got no friends cause I'm always flying, I just don't have the time. But I can land this old plane, I can land it just fine. Airline pilot guy, I fly America. Oh, airline pilot guy,